Welcome to Beyond the Board, where we break bread with some of the most interesting industry leaders. I'm Jason Beekle, CEO of Whole Foods Market, and I'm honored to host in-depth conversations with innovative and impactful leaders in the food industry. And today we have a very special guest, a true pioneer in sustainability and farm-to-table food service, a Michelin-starred chef of the iconic Blue Hill restaurants and co-founder of Row 7, Dan Barber.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
Nice introduction.
Oh, thanks, Dan, for being part of this. This will be a very special conversation today. I know our team members and our listeners will love it. Thanks again for hosting us here at Blue Hill. I think it was about 12 months ago I was here last for an amazing dinner that you had pulled together last year during Climate Week. Yeah, really happy to be back. Fun to dive a little deep. I think we're going to start right off the bat with Row 7. In just one sentence, how would you describe Row 7?
Delicious.
Oh, very good.
That's one word.
One word.
I got you
I
on
love
one
it.
word.
Even better.
Delicious. You know what? Jason, we're sitting at Blue Hill, New York, which is where the Blue Hill Restaurant Company started 25 years ago. And the idea was to bring a deliciousness in a comfortable, democratic way. Our prices were very middle of the road here. We had no white tablecloths. It was an approachable neighborhood restaurant. I know when you walked in here, ceilings are low. We wanted the expectations to be low, and then the food to just surpass that. Yeah. And it was the perfect spot. This little West Village place. Now we're at Blue Hill at Stone Barns, and the expectation was much higher, or high end. But the original idea around my food was the accessibility, and so I've kind of come full circle now with Row 7, because what I've learned in the 25 years is that these vegetables that I've been lucky enough, blessed to be working with, vegetables, grains, all the products that we work with are really superlative. The idea that they are for the rich or the 1% is preposterous. It's just, it is so obviously, not inevitable. And I saw an opportunity, at first to make vegetables better for me and my cooking. Admittingly, it was very selfish. That was 8 years ago. And one of your former CEOs of Whole Foods, Walter Robb, was encouraging me of taking this idea and helping some breeders create new varieties of vegetables. And now here we are, almost 8 years later. And thanks to you and Whole Foods, we've really done what I think is the impossible, or seemingly impossible, which is take the high-end experience, the white tablecloth experience, the 1%, and get it out to a ton of people who cook every day at home, in every region of the country. And to think that was possible in the span of just 7 years, it blows my mind. But I'm thrilled to be here on this podcast because it's because of Whole Foods that happened. I think the vegetables speak for themselves. We're doing quality. We've got incredible farmers, an incredible network of organic farmers. But without Whole Foods believing in this, zero. I really believe it would have stayed very niche. And when you stay very niche, as you know, the price of everything goes way up. And that was not the reason to do this. So I'm totally grateful to Whole Foods.
Yeah, we've been so happy to bring these wonderful products to our customers. I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't understand sort of what situates behind a seed company. And so maybe you can spend a little bit of time, what was some of that work, that took place over the last 7 years and sort of setting it up, and sort of what are some of the things that you think are really differentiated in how you approached it with Row 7?
I had this moment, I've told the story to you probably 100 times. I'll say it again. I was in my kitchen 15 years ago, and the squash breeder had eaten dinner, and I invited him back to the kitchen because I didn't know anything about breeding. I didn't know anything about scientists that were doing modern seeds. All I thought about modern seeds was you got the Monsanto maniacs over here, and you've got the heirloom, preservationists over there. And as a chef, I was over here with the preservationists, affectionately energetically supporting old varieties, because that's where the flavor was. And I don't want to get near modern seeds. Everything chemical and GMO that's divide. And when this guy comes into the kitchen, modern plant breeder, it opened up a world to me, because I said to him, if you're a squash breeder, which he was, why don't you breed a butternut squash that tastes good? That was my off the cuff question. His answer was, I've never bred a butternut squash that tastes good. Because no one's ever asked me to breed or select for flavor. And that's why, that moment changed my life, because I think I was ready for it. I heard it, but I was just like, it blew my mind. And from that moment on, I was excited to be talking to these modern breeders who are taking, genetics from the past and putting them out into the world so that they do well, yield well, store well, look appropriate for what a customer associates a squash to look like. The problem with our food system, as you know, is that those breeders, those modern breeders, are talking to certain people. They're not talking to chefs.
Yeah.
And they're talking to people who are really in the distribution game, who are in the processing game, which is where most of our food gets determined. And by determined, they want a certain size, a certain shape, a certain color, a certain shelf life, and a certain yield. Well, those are all criteria that trump flavor. And so, as one breeder said to me, when you're selecting for any of those things, you're selecting against flavor. If flavor's not a priority, then flavor falls out. And by the way, nutrition does too. And the irony of that, and the reason I focus so much on seeds, is that we're told to be eating more vegetables. We should be. We've got a health crisis in this country. We've got an ecological crisis. We've got a health crisis on the other end. And vegetables is actually a way out of this mess. From an environmental point of view, eating less meat and centering vegetables and grains on our plates, as we know. But it's also substantially better for us, demonstratively better. The problem is we don't breed for flavor. We don't breed for that. We breed for it to be a side show. And we need to reverse that. And we can't say, I'm going to go back to what our great grandparents were eating, because that's where you run into the difficulties of elitism. And they're very expensive to grow. Heirlooms and all that old stuff is beautiful. Those genetics are important to keep, but we have to keep modernize them. And being in touch with, in conversation with modern breeders to take those old genetics and reformulate them for a modern environment without GMOs, without CRISPR, without any of that craziness, just old world breeding, speed it up, I think is a trick that I have learned in these 8 years can go very fast and can be very effective for organic farmers. So it's exciting possibilities that really, the inkling, the firewood for that, the kindling was this conversation where the guy's like, no one's ever asked me to breed for flavor. And that's what we started.
Which just seems unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
When you think about it. And one of the things that you sort of mentioned in there as well is, some folks might breed for nutrition. I know through our conversations, the nutrient density that actually exists in these products is great as well. So you're sort of having your cake and eating it too.
Nice way. Yeah, totally.
They're delicious and nutritious.
Right. I say, I wear a chef's white coat, but I could wear the other white coat too. My dad always wanted me to be a doctor. So, but it is.
Food is medicine.
Food is medicine. I mean, the nutrition on this stuff, as we're testing it, it is off the charts. Quite literally, there's a former Monsanto breeder who left Monsanto he was a lettuce breeder at Monsanto. So he bred all the romaines and icebergs that are out there, which is 95% of the lettuce market. I'll remind you that you don't need to be reminded, but lettuce is the number one eaten vegetable in the United States of America. And as he said, I bred it without nutrition. It's got a little fiber, but it's 98% water. There's nothing in there. And as we know, it has no flavor. It's a vector for ranch dressing, right? It's nothing. So he left the company because he's like, they're not going to change. That's what they're doing is romaine and iceberg, zero nutrition. There's a nutrition crisis. And I know that we can do something far superior. So he created this new type of romaine. He created a lot of things. It's like a Willy Wonka breeding garden going to his thing. It's incredible to watch. But one of the things that I zeroed in on is this thing called spinach lettuce. And it looks like a bunch of spinach, but it's a romaine. And, essentially, you buy romaine and it's like the torpedo shape, and that's for yield efficiency. It's growing up. And so you get a lot per acre, a lot per row. So instead, his opens up a bit. You're cutting down a little bit on the yield, but you're opening the romaine lettuce up to photosynthesis. And the result is flavors that just jaw-dropping. And the nutrition, which I just got tested, is equivalent. Eating a head of this spinach lettuce is equivalent to eating a bowl of spinach. So you're eating romaine lettuce salad, but you're eating a bowl of spinach from nutrient density point of view. So everywhere I go, every time I talk to these breeders, we're looking for flavor. We're also getting nutrition at the same time. Flavonoids are, nutrition. They're also flavor. You can't have one without the other. That is very different from how I grew up. I grew up in the 70s where you had to choke down nutrition, So we also need a culture shift that says what you said, get your cake and eat it too. You can do that. Hedonism, pleasure, context of delight is the best way to take your medicine.
Yeah.
I think that's the ticket for us as we move on.
Great win-win. What was one of the most difficult challenges that you had as sort of setting up this business, or something that you weren't expecting to sort of come along?
I would never thought Whole Foods would get behind us the way you have. I never thought it. And you really, you took a total chance because, and when I just want to describe why the stakes were so high, because we had never tested these varieties, they're new varieties, at scale. We test them in small plots. They look great. Remember, these are seeds that are meant for organic farmers. This is very important, and I don't want to get too technical or too in the weeds, but I just want to stop here for 1 second and say the risk you took. 90% of the vegetables that are out there right now that are sold organic come from conventional seed. That means that when the seed was brought into the world, it was brought in a chemical environment, doused with chemicals. Then that seed gets handed to the organic farmer. This is allowed by USDA. This is a law that was passed 40 years ago, 35 years ago. So that organic farmer now is growing in an organic environment, but has a seed that is sort of crippled because it's been coddled its entire infancy. And so yields for that organic farmer are quite a bit lower. The expense goes up, and everyone says, Jesus, organic is great, but it's elite, it's too expensive for people. Well, part of the reason it's too expensive is because we haven't been breeding for organics. We've been breeding for a conventional system. That's why I always say the game is rigged in that sense. And so when we came to you and said, we want to do this nationally. I'm not doing this for elitism, New York State thing, region. No way. We're going to do this for the whole country, or we're not going to do it. There was no hesitation at all. And you had no idea what the yields were going to be. You had no idea what the expense was going to be. And it was really, we jumped off a cliff. And I'm so grateful for that confidence. And then the second part that I thought, was going to be much more challenging was just you and the farmers. Like how was I going to, maintain the quality, with farmers who I have no leverage? I'm a speck on these are major growers. Yeah. And because I have Whole Foods behind me, everybody falls into line. I was really it was unbelievable to watch. My biggest fear was, okay, we're going to test out whether they can yield. And so we're not going to be elitist. And I think we're going to do that. But are these farmers going to even care? Because we represent 0.1% of their property, of what they're growing. And because we had Whole Foods and the contracts behind us, it's like a gold card. And everyone felt energized to give it a try. And not luckily, but the genetics played out and the farmers did well. The yield was good. The disease resistance was good. All the things that we don't think about that keep them in business. And that allowed us to now get off the ground, and we're off and running. But without that, the canyon to jump over, forget it. We would not have gotten off the ground.
Well, as you know from some of the conversations we had in Austin previously, you had us at the taste. You had us at hello, and the taste of the product is really what won the team over. And on top of it, it's a great story that you can couple with it. And it's one of the things I share with a lot of folks that are looking to launch a brand. They're excited about the story and the packaging, and it's step one is it has to taste great. If it doesn't, customers might try it once, but they're not going to come back again.
Totally.
And the second piece of it, not only did it taste great, but the products were very innovative. These were things that we hadn't seen on shelves before. You got garlic, midnight Roma tomatoes. Right. And so that was a big piece of it as well. Our goal is to continue to help innovate, raise the bar, bring new offerings to customers. That's your goal,
Jason. I'm just going to push back a little bit, man, because that's not anybody else's goal. You just named, you named garlic, which is the love child of a leek and a garlic. You named a midnight Roma tomato, which is a tomato that reinvents the Roma tomato, the paste tomato, and actually tastes good and has incredibly high nutrition. I mentioned a squash that's shrunken. I mentioned another squash that looks like a pumpkin. All of these things were rejected by the industry. I just want to be clear. All of them headed for the trash heap. Actually, they were in the trash heap. We became Roast Evans like the Ellis Island, man. We're like, bring us your unloved and uncoveted. You're ignored, because we've got Whole Foods who actually will bring it into the marketplace. But you're right. If it doesn't deliver on the flavor, and there isn't a value received, then forget it. But you gave us the shot to deliver on that.
Had a great tasting, differentiation, and obviously it's been a big hit. What was the process?
You know what I'm struck by? I'm going to say one more thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I never put this together, but it's right there. I've now met a lot of retailers. I think I said to you privately, I'm going to say it publicly last night, I'm not like that excited about going out there into the world. You know, you've been dating for a long time. I feel very comfortable. I just don't love the idea. I'm not like a social guy, so I'm out meeting a lot of retailers, and like there are many things that I'm learning about the real world. Whole Foods is not the real world in that sense. I have been coddled actually with you guys, and I've been spoiled, and it's been an amazing experience. But one of the things that I think I'll always take away from this is everywhere I go in Whole Foods, and it starts up high, and then it goes down to the produce teams in your stores. Everybody actually cares about produce. And that seems like so obvious. You're in a produce team. It's what you do. But you go out into the world and you realize very little care about the farmer, how it's grown, the product, and obviously the flavor. Very little. The numbers are what matter. And, you know, or the ease of distribution is what matters. There's always criteria that are above. But what I find from Whole Foods, and it really does start in Austin in the office, all the way down, is everyone cares about flavor and about delivering on the promise that is Whole Foods, which is to eat better. I mean, at the core, that's what you're doing. And it's amazing to see that culture still intact.
Yeah, making sure that we've got the highest quality available for our customers. It really is an important element, and it starts with our core values. And as you said, from our top leadership team, through our produce team, our supply chain partners, and our team members who do the hard work at the last mile. So at the end, making sure that...
But you guys are defenders of this.
Yeah, it's so important.
It's so important because I actually think like you're holding the bar, you know, because it's a slippery slope, man, out there. Like, as I said, I'm now learning what it's like, and there really is no one like you. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity with you. I'm also grateful out in the field because, as I also said to you, nobody oversees the quality of what's being grown and the standards. Like, we're held to a standard, and the farmers that we deal with are checked on.
Yeah.
Like nobody's business. Nobody, I think, understands out there that very few retailers do that kind of due diligence. And it's expensive, it's time consuming, but it's the core of what you're doing. It's amazing.
But it's a key element of why you see the quality at the store level. Yeah. So when you work all the way backwards and develop those win-win partnerships all the way upstream, you know, obviously, yes, there's some things that might be a little laborious on some of those things that we need to check and certify, but we do it because we want to bring the best quality product to our customers. And so we all win if we can do those pieces.
Let me ask you something. I'm going to do this publicly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the number one thing I've been asked, and this is full disclosure, from my team, my growing Row 7 team, the farmers, just people who know that we're dealing with real foods. They're like, well, that may have been true of Whole Foods in the past, but now they're with Amazon. Do you actually think that level of commitment to the things that we're talking about will stick? So I'm saying it's right to you, who's the man who's
absolutely 100%.
So what do I say to them, and why, actually, from your point of view?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, the first thing I would say is being part of Amazon is actually going to allow us to deliver on our higher purpose, live our core values, and continue to raise the quality standards that we have, because we are thinking about the long term and how do we not only serve customers today, but how do we change the world as we want to nourish people on the planet. And so when I look back in the last 8 years, which we've been part of Amazon now for 8 years, which is hard to believe. It seems like it was just yesterday.
Yeah.
We look at the quality standards that we've been able to elevate, and whether it's banned ingredients that we put into place over that period of time, expanding our animal welfare standards, sustainable seafood sourcing standards, advancing our cage-free plus egg standards. Those are all things that we were able to do because we were able to think about the business in the long term and how we best serve our customers. And so it's been a great journey over that period of time. And there's a lot of complementary things as we work together. When, you know, we talk about some of the climate smart agriculture practices like regenerative and organic and how they tie to the climate pledge that we're all part of as part of Amazon. Yeah. There's a lot of things that actually tie together on that side. So I do a lot of myth busting because I get the same same
You do?
question.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to
And
offend you, but I just want you to know what's out there swirling,
offended. But which is why I like to myth bust it and go straight it on that side. So it's actually allowing us to do, bigger things in this space as well. And the other exciting part, and this kind of leads to my next question, is, it's allowing us to work deeper with our suppliers all the way upstream and how we can help support and help make a bigger impact towards folks moving into regenerative and organic. And for me, I'd be interested to know, what was your process in selecting the farming partners that you've chose to work with?
We started with double that we ended up with. Process of elimination. We were looking at quality. We're looking at timeliness. We're looking at how does Whole Foods, deal with these farmers in particular? Do you have preferences? We learned a lot from your team. And, by selection, we got down to what I think are the best. We're at 25 now on East Coast, West Coast, and we want to be in the Midwest soon, thanks to you carrying us across the country. But I think the truth is that we are at an inflection point right now, and I'm sure you're hearing this with real organic farmers. Not just, regenerative is hard to define, although they're trying, but the real organic farmers, we're certified organic. We're a certified organic seed company, which I think is key, but we're certified organic growing. And what I'm hearing and seeing, and now I'm visiting all these farmers, is that they are really at the slimmest possible margins. They're getting flooded from Mexico, from the south. They can't compete on labor, obviously. And worse, this is the one I'm hearing the most, is that even if they could compete on labor, and they obviously can't, but even if they could, it's the idea that a lot of these companies are using one contract with, let's say, a Kroger. I'll just name it the Kroger, not that they're a specific example, but one contract with one superpower. And they're saying, okay, we're going to sell into you both the organic and the conventional, because I do both. I grow both. I'll take a loss on the organic because it only represents, 10% of what I'm doing, maybe even less. But the other 90%, I got the contract I want. And for organic farmers who are only organic, whoo-hoo, that's the sign of demise. I'm hearing that over and over again. So, I think, we are at a moment right now, 65% of our fruits and vegetables are organic, are imported. 65%. Jesus, man, 20 years ago, I remember that statistic was in the 40s and I was gasping. Yeah. 65%. We're headed to a nation that is a net importer of food. The breadbasket of the world is a net importer of food. That's a frightening statistic, and we got to turn that around. So starting with seed, I think, is one way. There's a lot of ways up this hill, I'm sure, but starting with, if we get seed wrong, I don't think we can, incentivize organic farmers to stay in business.
Yeah, it's seed, it's land access, it's access to capital. And quite frankly, it's supporting the small and medium-sized farmers.
Even though the transaction costs for you are so much more. And that's, I just want to say to your listeners, I don't even know who your listeners are, but I'm going to say it.
A lot of team members.
Good. Okay. Team members. I want you to know you are willing to take the transaction costs of those small and medium-sized farmers. That's the difference. The big players just don't want to be bothered by that. More and more. You have a lot of savings there. So boy, you get into that size and then you get into the trouble of I'll take a loss on the organic and I'll just sell in the conventional. And all of a sudden you're importing, people I don't think they pay attention enough to where food's coming from,
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that, we're really fortunate is a lot of our customers care about where their food is sourced. And so the passion around having local is important. And it's one of the things, we talked a little bit about, sometimes folks perceive things have changed over the last year since being part of Amazon. It is one of the areas where there's not a lot of understanding around food miles and the impact of that, as well as the importance of supporting local food systems. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we need to do is continue to make sure that customers have an appreciation for that. But it's not easy. And quite frankly, it's not easy, as just mentioned before, we're losing acreage every single year on farmland. We're losing farmers, quite frankly.
Yeah, aging out.
Yeah, exactly. And the next generation's not wanting to take this on.
Way.
And they look at it as,
can't blame them.
It's hard work. Yeah. It's a, really tough business financially. It takes one bad season with a weather impact or what have you that, really puts things in a challenging spot. And as I mentioned earlier before, the access to capital, especially right now, is really difficult. And so helping figure out ways that we can advocate on behalf of especially the small and mid-sized family farms is a big part of.
And you
our
have the
purpose.
impossible task because, as I've heard you say, you're trying to walk what you just said, along with offering people affordable prices. So you don't become the whole paycheck, whatever the hell, that craziness that was,
we threw that out a long time ago.
I know you did, and you did it effective. I'm sorry to bring it up again,
It's all good.
but you don't want to go back to that. And
No,
you hold your ideals high until, you start getting blowback on the other side. It's so tough.
Yeah.
You're threading, a very thin line to walk. So I admire it.
Yeah. Well, and the goal is to figure out how do we deliver on quality and at the same time value for customers. Yeah. And it is a really fine line to walk. I think we found a good sweet spot here, but continuing to elevate that. And one of our goals is to continue to provide more and more accessibility to our offerings. So that's a big part of our future, I think, is we can meet more customers where they're at and ultimately continue to help have a greater customer base be able to enjoy the highest quality natural and organic foods in the marketplace.
Yeah. I hope that if we're lucky enough to sit here in a decade and look back on this and tell our war stories, that we talk about Whole Foods, defining something, Whole Foods defined organic. I mean, that's what it is. They did. For the average American, Whole Foods represents organic agriculture in a way that was not thinkable 30 years ago. Full stop. And that's the work of John and Walter Robb and so many others in your company. I hope that the seed conversation becomes a new part of this, because the control of seed is, right now 65% of our seed supply is in the hands of just a few companies. And it's that uber control, is threatening farmers. It's threatening our food supply. It's threatening deliciousness. That's for sure. Nutrition. And we have to break that up. I think if people knew that 65% of our food supply is in the hands of 4 chemical companies, that would not be a delicious future for anybody. And so we need to get that out there, and we need to show them what deliciousness can taste like from a diversity of players, not just roast seed. I'm advocating now just for seed as the conversation. I think Whole Foods could own it and lead it. And it's you have a lot to communicate to your shoppers, I know, but this one I think is going to become more mainstream as people recognize the power of what's in those genetics for their health, not to mention the ecosystem's health.
Can you share a little bit about what you all have done as it relates to sort of seed patents, which is, you've taken a very different view on this one.
Oh my God. We've taken like the craziest approach. We don't patent seeds. We protect. So we're not out there being silly about it. We protect, we have sometimes an exclusive license, but we're not chasing after a patent for so many reasons. And one of it is just philosophical. It's like, who determined that we're allowed to own biological life? Somebody actually, it was determined in 1982. It was a law passed by and it's wrong. And the reason it's wrong is because it's like, somebody said this, a breeder said it to me when I was questioning, why is that so bad? Patenting allows you to get investors behind you because it's very expensive to create new seed, and you do a lot of money, and then you have the benefits of it for a little while. That's how capitalism works. And the other flip side of it is that once you take genetic traits and you own them, you take them out of the public space. And we are entering, as you know, into a world that's very fraught with our environment, and taking genetics out of the opportunity to use them for whatever's coming our way. And what's coming our way isn't pretty, and it's very different. And we need all the genetic diversity possible. So you take that off it's like, what the guy said to me is like, it's a little bit like, I'm in your kitchen and you reach for an ingredient to finish a dish, and I tap you and I said, no, those carrots, those are not yours. Those are owned by another company. You cannot. So all of a sudden you're off of what's the realm of possibility. And for a biologist and a scientist, that is a scary future. And that's where everything's going. So we took a stand that said, our patent is going to be our brand, and if somebody wants to copy our spinach lettuce, go ahead. We're already on to the next thing. We actually have 5 years of stuff in the hopper now, and we're just going to keep innovating and bring it out to the world, because I don't see, if they do copy it, it says flattery. I don't want to be totally novice about this. I know there's some real money, economic issues here. And as a steward of the capital that's been invested, I got to be careful. But at the same time, you spend your time just trying to tie up patents and find yourself in a real hole. And that's not the right thing to do for the future of food. And I'd rather spend our time and our money and our investment in what's next, because there's so much that's possible. It's just, we got to bring the culture, the food culture, to bring that pull through. And I'm much more interested in that deliciousness.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I oftentimes have shared, here are our quality standards. If any competitor wants to copy those, take it. Right. If you want to ban the same set of ingredients, you want to support animal welfare in the same way, great. We're doing everybody a better service and making our food systems better.
I hope everyone understands the standards that you put into place, because I alluded to it, but what I see is extremely onerous in a good way. When you go to Whole Foods and you're shopping for something, you can count on the fact that it has been overseen by someone who takes it very seriously. And I think, back when I was much younger, when Michael Pollan was writing about Whole Foods, and I think he and John Mackey got into some arguments about, industrialization and corporatization. I was on Michael's side. He's both a friend of mine and also a genius. But as an investigative reporter, I think he missed a bigger issue, which is, if you look at Whole Foods compared to everyone else, there's a reason that they should be wearing on their sleeve what they do, and that was lost in the conversation. So that should be corrected today, and I'm out to correct it.
Yeah, well, the way I like to think about it is, we do the homework for our customers so they don't have to.
And that's nice.
Our job is to continue to be the tip of the spear that is helping transform and protect the future of our food systems. Just a few moments ago, you were mentioning, some of the innovation that you've got, and, for the next 5 years, you've got some ideas there. How has being a chef sort of helped in that process, and how does that influence some of the work that you're doing around innovation in this space?
It's been so humbling, because, chefs think you're demigods. I mean, be honest with you, we have the biggest egos in the world. We do. And everyone fawns over us. So it's like, it's so easy, The truth is, the flavors that can be developed in the science lab, in the breeding farm, are so much more interesting. And so much, they're beyond imagination, of what I can do on the cutting board or on the stove. And I'll give you an example. It's like these oats that we're working with. This is off of vegetables, but it's the future. It's oats, this breeder, he's 82 years old. It's been around since the 70s, when the American Heart Association said, if you want our heart stamp of approval, the red heart, that's the American Heart Association stamp of approval, your oats have to be less than 6% fat. And so, as a chef, I'm getting my oats, and as a chef, you would add, fat, because, and sugar, because to make your oats taste good, right? But what this breeder did is allow a ton of diversity to happen in the field. He was marrying different varieties of oats, and he got an oat that's 10.5% fat. It's trial number 341, and we're going to hopefully bring this into the world with Whole Foods. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I couldn't have done anything like that in my kitchen. It's flavors. When you have whole fat oat, real oat fat, it is the most luxurious fat, sweet fat possible. And the idea that you would add, cream or brown sugar to that thing, and it's just like ridiculous. It's already so sweet, and you need like half a bowl to feel satiated. And by the way, it lowers your cholesterol. The beta glucans are the highest and this guy did this all through his magician work in the field. And what he said is like, yes, I put some good diversity in play, at work, but honestly, it was nature that allow that. And that's the biggest lesson, is that if we allow the biological world to create the future of our vegetables, we really allow it. If we don't say we want this variety to yield this, and utilize this amount of chemicals and be shaped like the romaine, like looks like a military, and can ship this many SKUs to this many stores, that's how we breed. And the problem with that is we lose everything. And so if you let actually nature to come together, the flavors and the nutrition are stupefying, and they make chefs look kind of silly, actually. And that's been the humbling experience of working with these breeders. Amazing opportunity to think about deliciousness for the future.
So with all these different combinations and different varietals that you all are discovering in this process, how do you select? Down select which ones you're going to, help bring to market, work with farming partners on, and ultimately get in the hands of customers.
Yeah, 99.9% is thrown away. It's true. It's like the breeding world is about throwing away. It's not about taking. It's about throwing away. And so what's interesting is that now that I'm involved in these conversations with these breeders, they are starting to keep their eyes open for things that they know the industry doesn't want. So it's really like this breeder described it to me as like breeding vegetables is you're driving down a highway and at some point you got to make an exit. And it's not like it's not like the end pathway the end destination that you're going to, is impossible to get to. It's there. You gotta take your clicker and commit to it. And the question is really who's driving the car, so where do you want to go? And if you're telling me nutrition, which is flavor, or flavor and nutrition are where you want to get off on the highway, then that's where we'll go. That's a very different conversation than anything that's happening. And so, what I see is, Jason, when I started the company, I really thought most of the investment from our investors was going to be about creating these varieties. I really thought we were going to have to start at ground zero because I knew it hadn't been done. What I was wrong about is that these breeders, like the oat breeder or like the Spanish Les breeder, these people have been keeping these varieties that they know there's no market for in their desk drawer. Mm-hmm. They've just been keeping it going. And we came along, and that's why I say we're the Ellis Island. We just got handed these genetics. This leek and garlic come together and have a baby. We called it Garlic. The president of the seed company, another seed company, huge seed company in Europe. He called me, the president, he said, this guy's Hans Bongers is the alien breeder. He's a genius. He spent 10 years. This company spends $75 million on R&D every year. So 10 years of alien breeding to get to what is like kind of the Rosetta Stone. It's like the leek and garlic to actually create a baby. Did it. He said, yeah, we're not going to release it. So you're not going to release it? What do you say? He's like, there's no market for a love child of a garlic. Like I said, of course there's no market for it. It doesn't exist. But I played it as cool as I could. I said, oh, we'll try it. And I fell in love with this thing. And now, thanks to you guys, it's grown in multiple regions of the country. It's in every Whole Food store, and it's taking over the leek market because it's phenomenally delicious.
Flavor's outstanding.
The flavor's
so
outstanding.
And how to use it.
Exactly. Use the whole thing. It's such a no-brainer, but nobody wants to take the risk because everyone's like, there's no market for it. And the cost to bring it to market, that's the canyon you got to jump over. Yeah. It's too great. We're not going to do it. And because of you guys and our partnership, actually, we've been able to do that with a bunch of different, with beets, with squash, with tomatoes. And, I've got a dugout filled of stuff for years to come, really, that is super exciting.
Can't wait to see that dugout. What particular product would you say is sort of you're most proud of and the one that for you just sort of resonates? And I know it's hard. It's like picking your favorite kids.
Yeah. Let me see. The oats is one that I'm like, I eat every morning, and I lowered my cholesterol 85 points because of those beta glucans. I got to get them to you. They're on another level. But I think the one that, let me see, the one that we're about to release is, about to release a cone head cabbage. Cabbage, it's like a workaday vegetable. I think people expect it to be bland. People expect it to be just, whatever. And we have a breeding group in Europe also that gave us this unbelievably sweet cabbage. It's shaped like a cone, so it's going to be differentiated in your market, which I think is important for people to see. But you eat this stuff raw, you eat it baked, you eat it roasted, you eat grilled, and it's like the possibilities for producing it on your plate cheaply, quickly, at home are endless. And to me, I'm like more and more, I want to support the home cook. The harried mother or father comes home from work, got the kids, or doesn't, and just like comes home late and wants something that's home cooked. I think the best defense against where we're headed with our ecological disasters and our health disasters is to cook. is to cook, because if someone else is cooking for you, it's not as healthy. It's definitely not as good. And so giving them the power, the tools of being able to cook quickly at home. So that's the cabbage. It's like you don't need to do anything. If you want to you chop it up, you got some salt and pepper, really, and some dressing, you're fine. You want to put it in a pan, you got a gourmet meal as a steak, as a cabbage steak. That's being released this week, next week at Whole Foods. So I hope it can fly. And then thankfully I have you guys behind it.
I know our customers are going to love that. And when you think about sort of your aspirations, how do you see Row 7 influencing customers, consumers, and their relationship with food? What would be sort of your ideal states as far as what you're able to do with the brand?
My goal would be that the cook, or the chef, but the cook takes produce from Whole Foods or from wherever they get Row 7. They take it home and they have such confidence in this vegetable that it centers the plate pretty naked. That to me, that's the sign of something that is singing on its own, doesn't need a lot of bells and whistles, and speaks for itself. So my ultimate goal, and we're going to have a meal next week together with some of your Whole Foods compatriots. I'm going to try and create a meal that's like that, that's really naked vegetables on the plate to show you what's possible if we start with the right genetics. When you get a steak, you don't come home and think about 100 ways to jazz up the steak with 1,000 other ingredients. But that's not true of vegetables.
Right.
So we
First
need
step
to.
is how much butter do you put in?
Butter. Yeah. How am I chopping this? What am I mixing it with? All this is so fraught. It's like, I would like you to take the vegetable and feel the confidence that it's going to deliver for you in what a protein like a steak delivers for you.
I've got one more question for you, and then we're going to start the lightning round, which is always everyone's favorite.
Nervous for the lightning round, but go ahead.
Favorite round. Oh, you're gonna love it.
Okay.
How has your thinking evolved about sustainability and protecting the future of our food systems, and the role that Row 7 and you're able to help champion in?
Can I tell you something? I'm going to make this very simple. It's not simple. That's probably the hardest question I've ever been asked. But here I'm going to go right to I'm going to get it to as simple as I can. Agriculture today is represented by grain agriculture. So almost 70% of our land is in grain. So we've been talking for the last hour about vegetables. It's 6 or 7%. So we're talking about the environment. It's like 6 or 7%. 70% is in grain. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because most of that grain, if it doesn't go to our gas tank, is going to feed animals. And if we're going to do something to change the trajectory of our fraught environment and change the trajectory of our diets and our health, we have to do something about meat. We have the most inefficient food system in the history of the world. 70% of our land is going to feed an animal that feeds us. That is actually the definition of waste. People talk about waste as a big topic. The number one on all of it, it's not the ugly pear that Whole Foods doesn't want to sell. It's the steak. Yeah. It's taking up all of our resources and 190 million acres of just corn and soybeans. So if we could breed vegetables and grains that were stupefyingly delicious and nutritious, would we take the steak and put it aside for a second? I'm not advocating for vegetarianism. I probably should, but I don't. I love meat. I love it. And it's very healthy for you and done the right way, raised the right way. It's great for the environment too, actually. But the way we're eating it, the 6-ounce thing in the middle of the plate, I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a westernized conception of what's for dinner. And it is only a westernized conception, which means it's like a couple hundred years old. If you go back through 10,000 years of history, no one ever did that. Maybe on an occasion, on a very, very special occasion, but otherwise smattering of meat. And you had vegetables and grains, actually. So my aspiration is to start with seed, to get to a place where we're not saying, I got to give up meat today. I'm so psyched. I'm doing all vegetables today, or I'm doing vegetables and like I'm doing a little side of meat over here and I'm psyched. That to me, that's where we're headed if we can get this right together.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So we're on to the lightning round. As a kid, what was your least favorite vegetable?
Beets.
And do you like them now?
Love them. You know why? Beet breeder, Irwin Goldman. I have nothing to do with this. Orthodox Jewish man, Madison, Wisconsin. I'm saying Orthodox Jewish man because we're on the eve of Rosh Hashanah and I'm thinking of my father and going to temple right now. But Irwin was embarrassed because his kids were embarrassed that he was a beet breeder because their friends in the sandbox made fun of the dad who created the worst vegetable in the world. Most kids hate beets. he, being Irwin, brilliant breeder scientist, went about and researched, why do kids hate beets? No one's ever asked that. Why exactly? And he discovered it. It's a cluster of compounds. It's called geosmin, and it's intensely earthy flavored. And kids, in part because not that long ago, they were rooting around for what was poisonous and what was, edible and everything. They get away from those kind of strong earthy flavors. And he bred against geosmin and created an incredibly low geosmin beet that you can eat raw. This to me was the revelation when I had it. And as a chef, I've grown to actually like beets, but when I give kids this slice raw of this yellow beet that tastes like candy, how many times have I been in a Whole Foods over the last 2 years? I've been in so many Whole Foods doing demos, and I wish I had a nickel for every kid that came along in the cart with the mother. It's the same script, man. And I have one on film that encapsulates it all, but it's the same script. They come on, oh, would you like to try a beet? Mom goes, he doesn't eat beets. Kid looks, I'm like, dude, will you just try this for me? Just give it. And then they go away and then we watch, we have a video, ooh, round, come back, seconds and thirds. And the mother, we have one mother, woo, like this, being like, I cannot believe this.
Yeah.
I've never seen my kid touch a beet. And here it is. That happened. Oh, it happens over and over and over again. So my heart is with Irwin Goldman and the beets.
What is the most overrated food trend right now?
Protein.
What meal made you fall?
By the way, vegetables have a lot of protein.
What meal made you fall in love with cooking?
Oh, my aunt made me scrambled eggs when I had a strep throat. And my mother died when I was very young, when I was 4, and I did a lot of cooking for myself, but I was so sick, I had 103, whatever fever. And she was French trained. She was a home cook, but she was trained in France. And she made, eggs over a double boiler and whisked them. And I'll never forget, my throat was burning and I just took those eggs and they slid down my throat. And I had no clue that something could taste that good. And I felt loved at the same time. So it's like, to me, that's the memory. To be fair, my father was a terrible cook. And part of the reason I think I love those eggs because he butchered eggs every morning, like dry, like this were his eggs. In the best of them, that was it. So part of it, I owe it to my dad that I had that experience. Because if I didn't have this every day, then when my aunt cooked the eggs, I would never have appreciated the beauty of that.
I love that. What's the last kitchen gadget you bought from Amazon?
I tell you right now, the spatula for home, because I had a plastic one and plastic's no. My wife bought it, to be honest with you, from Amazon. I put it away and I ordered the steel one.
What's your number one tip to help get kids to try new foods?
I give them row 7.
All right. That's a good.
It's row 7. That's my way in.
Who's the first person you called when you made Time's 100 list?
Oh, I want to say my wife might listen to this. My wife.
Okay.
My wife.
And
obviously my wife. Who else would I?
Yes. What's a little known fact that might surprise folks about you?
That I just love simple food. People cook for me and I love it. But I really love to be cooked for in just the simplest stuff on the table. I go right for the unplugged meal. That is my favorite. Yeah. I think most chefs, that's their secret. It's like they just, the fussiness is not what they want when they're not at work.
Last question. What's next for row 7?
Next for row 7 is we're going to launch with you, our vegetables mummified at the perfect moment. We're going to take our vegetables that were harvested. We're going to take the best of them and we're going to throw them into a can. Okay. We're calling it tin vegetables, but it's canned vegetables. And I want to take on the canning aisle. I want to reinvent canning. Jason, like the idea that canning tastes with vegetables tastes the way it does is ludicrous. It's as stupid as people telling you that you if you want to feed the world, you got to have disgusting vegetables or cheap grains. It's not true. We're reinventing. We have a co-packer that we're working with that's amazing. It's our specs. It's with our genetics. And if you have the right genetics, you have the right cooking, I think we can capture flavors of vegetables and, by the way, nutrition in a can that no one's ever experienced. I'm saying that a little too arrogantly, but I'm going for it.
I've tasted them. They're outstanding. And on top of it, you're helping reduce food waste at the same time.
That's right. It's a good point. It's something I didn't actually realize. We're fully integrated here. Is that what you say when you're business terms? It's like, got the seed, we're growing the vegetable, but people don't realize that the vegetables that grow for the market for Whole Foods, anybody, there's a certain standard. 30% or more could go towards not the supermarket. And now we've got an outlet for it, in a can. And the flavors of those, damaged vegetables are terrific. It's just the look of it is not right. And Whole Foods doesn't want to try and sell that, rightfully so. So we're putting it into a can. I'm hoping that the ease of tasting nutritious, delicious vegetables will become that much easier.
We look forward to having our customers enjoy the amazing products that you'll be.
Well, thank you for believing in us,
in the
man.
future. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today on Beyond the Board. And thanks, Dan, for being our guest today. Until next time, let's keep supporting companies like Row 7 that are pioneering new paths in our food systems.